Hey there, neighbor. Welcome back to another Phasmophobia update, where I'm going to take you through everything that Phasmophobia has updated or changed on the beta branch since January. So glad you're here. Okay, now first up, I should say that there have been so many updates, kind of rapid fire with significant changes since January. I'm gonna break this down by day and what they changed so you can see kind of where we've gotten to in such a small amount of time, okay? Let's begin with January. I got it on my screen here. January the 2nd. They rolled out some optimizations on lighting to make load times better, and they broke it way worse, so they had to revert it. Let's move on. New stuff. Added an accessibility page where you can swap your sound to mono. I don't know that that was a huge issue for people. I wasn't aware that that may have been a thing. Added a button to select the contract difficulty rather than it being random. So here was the first big one. We've always complained that you had to leave a map, come back, leave a map, come back, until you found, first of all, the map you wanted to play, but secondly, the difficulty. So this changes it so that as long as your map that you want to play, let's just say Ridgeview is there, you can go into it, and then you select professional, amateur, or intermediate. You can just choose that now. Huge feature. Well done, developer. It only took you 3.5 months. You can now enter the room invite code with the numpad. So people rapid fire trying to join rooms, now you can do that, and it's, if you got a little 10 key on your keyboard, you can 10 key yourself in before everyone else, I guess. So congrats to you. If you have a 60% mechanical keyboard and don't have a keypad, shit. And lastly, on the 8th, you can now place candles similar to the ghost writing in VR. So I'm in non-VR. So I assume it means like it just allows you to place it just straight up instead of having to just chuck shit out of your inventory all the time and hope it lands the correct way. Changes for the 8th. They removed the new lighting system in school and a couple other maps because it was broken. They moved the arrow keys on the server browser to help with gamepad navigation. They moved a set of arrows. I guess it was tough to see them before. It's less tough now. Updated some localization. Prison is now no longer always a default map when you're going into games to create a match. Because before, when they had just moved it live, prison was in every rotation no matter what. But now they removed that. Another huge one. On professional difficulty, it will no longer tell you if the ghost responds to someone alone or in a group. So that's like an added challenge for professional. Again, I support it. That's great. The really big one they did on the 8th. I had to look back at my notes. The ghost will now walk to your last known location when it's lost sight of you in hunting. That means, and they say that means ghosts will follow you around corners. What that means, as I've played, is that the ghosts, if they saw you go around a corner, they're gonna follow you around that corner. If they saw you duck into a room, they're gonna follow you into that room. And it's made it much harder to survive. And there were a couple other changes coming up in the next couple days, which have already passed, obviously, because we're doing this kind of retro. Anyway, they made some other changes in a minute that make it even harder. Like they added another level. Anyway, we'll get there. The fixes, they fixed the gamepad navigation in the selection screen, I guess. Potential fix for ghost photos not always registering. I've had that happen to me a ton of times, where you take a photo of, you know, a giant neon green footprint or a handprint like directly on a window, and it's like, I don't know, I don't see any handprint. You get no credit for it. And then they fixed a bug in prison where the ghost boundary box kind of extended a little bit past where it was supposed to. They also, the same day, I guess, rolled out a second update, which fixed a bug where you couldn't place the candles that spawn inside the houses. That sounds like a very serious bug. It sounds like you just couldn't put candles down in houses for like a short period of time. I don't even use candles. Fixed a bug where you couldn't change between mono and stereo. Fixed a bug where the main menu ambiance was not always playing. Says potential fix for the ghost writing book sometimes showing an outline even after it's placed. I assume that means a target in reticle. I've never seen that, but apparently that was something that could happen. And fixed a bug where the ghost couldn't kill you. Now that one seems a little bit serious, being that the whole game hinges on the ghost's ability to kill you. So hopefully that wasn't like a major thing. All right, on the 10th of January, nothing new, but they made changes. The first one up is they replaced the ghost whiteboard text for professional difficulty. That sentence is surprisingly difficult to say. To make it more clear. So it wasn't super clear that you didn't know now if the ghost responded one way or another. I guess they just clarified. Second change, and this is also a big one, professional difficulty, the fuse box always starts off. That means if you're playing the game the way it's supposed to be played on I'm just kidding. You can play it whatever. If you're playing on professional, you can't even turn lights on when you first walk on or in, you know, whichever property you're at. So that could be a long walk in asylum or high school for you to get to that fuse box if you were one of the, you know, people who kind of turn on lights as you go. Nothing wrong with that, but now it's much harder. And lastly, they made improvements to the ghost AI when chasing players around a corner. And again, I can confirm, having played all this week, that ghosts are really not very nice anymore. They really come after you. Like some of them, revenants too, like a missile, just like a missile straight. Oh, it was so satisfying. I hope you guys tune into the stream. I hope you guys watch the stream. If you don't, twitch.tv/Sonoket. You could catch us live. We have a lot of fun. Fixed Tanglewood bug where you could still somehow glitch onto the countertop or the TV, I guess the TV stand. So people were still, like, again, you messed with the cupboards and somehow that would propel you up. Cheaters. Every single one of them, cheaters. Fixed a bug where you could place candles on walls. Fixed a bug where the host could see other candles placement targeting reticles, even though they weren't the one putting down candles. Like, you could see your teammates, right? I don't know. And they said they added a potential fix for the bug where VR players could lay down and be invincible. If you didn't know about this, basically, if you're playing in VR, your hitbox, or I guess model or whatever, is tied to the visor, I think, from head down. And so when these players would lay down on the ground, the ghosts, their hitbox for the kill range, I guess, would just go above this other plane. Like if you laid down, and the VR players could not be touched because there was no, they never had a way for the ghost to reach down, I guess, or change its hitbox, and it started off the ground, I guess. Well, he said that maybe he fixed that, so I don't actually know. But someone just the other day on stream, I think, showed me that you can, in the farmhouse, just stand like behind a set of boxes under the stairs, and apparently you're invincible there too. So these exploits are kind of coming out one after another. And so hopefully they fix them. All right, on to the 11th of January. New on the 11th of January, and this was huge, the ghost now listens for players' voices when you're in the game when it's hunting. Now, I had been under the impression that the game had the entire time been listening to people's voices and looking at flashlights, but I guess that was probably just invented by the people playing it, probably just like anything else that gets started in Phasmo. So I guess the ghosts were never listening. But now they've changed it. But now they've changed it so that if you're talking, so in multiplayer, from what I've heard, if you have your push to talk button held down and you're talking, the ghost will hear that, like local chat. But if you're playing single player, you don't have to hold down a button. The ghost, I guess, just hears no matter if you have that button held down or not, but that's only in single player. So big changes, and actually streaming this week, I know I keep saying this stuff, but I'm trying to relate to you guys how big these changes are. I was able to trap a ghost in a corner of Tanglewood because I was talking at it outside from the window. I still think that that's why that ghost got stuck. And so you may be able to do some interesting things now. If you're talking while there's a hunt happening, you may be able to redirect a ghost even. I don't know for sure. I need to do more testing. And then fixes that day, they said in Grafton Farmhouse, they fixed an exploit where you could hide behind some wood panel in the storage room. And they fixed a bug where you could walk through some exterior walls in prison. Not big fixes, but nonetheless, they're there. Next. All right, the 12th of January, and this is when another huge change went out. January 12th, and this was the other big one. The ghost is now, can open doors like closets and lockers, stuff that it didn't check before. The ghost will now open those to see if players are inside. And because they added that now you can, as a player, hold a door shut against the ghost. But if the ghost is gonna phase through the wall because it detects you, it's still gonna do that. But now there's this added mechanic of if you're hiding in a closet, if you're hiding in a locker, even if you're just in a room, you're gonna wanna hold that door shut if possible. That's gonna change the way that a lot of people hide. Obviously, when you're the loot master, you don't have to hide, ever, okay? You're just so good at the game you don't die. You believe me. The people out there believe me. But now it just means that you have this added fear factor, right? The ghost, as they've been hunting. So here's the story, right? In prison, when we were streaming earlier this week, a ghost started hunting, and I was out in the lobby area of prison. and I could hear the ghost coming, but not because the ghost was making that creepy ghost noise. It was because I heard every prison door on the way that he was running was opening. And so now there's this added other thing where if a ghost runs by any kind of door, it opens, at least from my experience. And so on prison, I heard ka-chunk, 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 and all the doors were opening as the ghost was getting closer. And so the doors opening were louder each time. It was very spooky. It was really spooky, and it's a cool change. I like it. It's just another, layer of how to scare the players more. Okay, fixes. They fixed a lot of safe spots and levels, so I think that there were actually a lot more that I had never seen or heard about where you could just sit in a specific place and I guess you were invincible. They fixed a bug with the ghost pathing. I guess the ghost was getting stuck sometimes when trying to attack people in a locker or a storage area. And then they did a second patch that same day where they made changes to, they improved the ghost pathing to find people who were in lockers or closets, I guess, was a big deal. That was a big problem for them that day. And then they slightly increased the distance that a ghost can hear you, so you had to be even quieter now. And then they slightly increased the number of times that ghosts would open doors during a hunt. They fixed a bug where the ghost could see you through the side of the lockers, I guess. So you get in your safe lock, you're like, great, I got the door hid, and then the ghost just saw right through the side of the locker somehow. Sorry, those people who died that day. And they fixed a bug where push to talk would turn off for the host. I think I've had that happen to me before. That's a good fix. And then they fixed a bug where the ghost couldn't open locker doors, which is the greatest bug, because it's just like, okay, I guess I was invincible for that whole day. Great. Oh my God, the 14th. We're moving on to the 14th of January with probably the best quality of life fix that has ever hit this game, period, end of story. They added a button to add the max number of each item so you don't have to spam click on each item. Oh my God. The fact that the game didn't have this on launch when you have to add 30 things, this is my favorite change that we've made so far. This is so good. So good. All right, changes they rolled out. The ghost now searches closer to the player's last known location before widening its search for, going random places. So what that means is that if you are in Tanglewood and you just round the corner, sorry, I have a very itchy nose apparently. If you're on Tanglewood and you run around the corner into the kitchen and the ghost loses sight of you, it's gonna focus on the kitchen first and kind of go out from there. Whereas before it was more, if you turned a corner, the ghost would just sometimes turn around and just go the other way. Like, he definitely didn't go that way because I lost sight of him. Better check behind me. It wasn't great logic, so this is a good fix. They made an adjustment to how the ghost opens lockers and closets. It just says improved, so I have no idea. I guess it just was still having trouble probably, and so they kind of alleviated that. And the ghost will now open closets and lockers further away from itself, so they've buffed the ghost a little bit with regards to how it can find you. They have slightly increased the range at which a candle provides light in the area. I didn't think candles were underpowered before, but I guess they did. Thank you, Jesus. They've removed the dirty water objective, which... long overdue. That objective is awful. Almost every group that I play with knows that if that's the last thing listed on the board, we just leave. I just had to be honest with you. It's a dumb objective that no one can ever complete. So I'm glad that they removed it. If you need a couple other ideas for optional objectives, let me hit you with a quick list of 3. 1, boom, come within 2 or 3 feet of a ghost during a hunt and survive. Second challenge could be on a professional difficulty map where the breaker starts off, you do the whole match without turning the breaker on. Could be an objective. Get your sanity to 0% and still complete the mission. That could be a very challenging objective for some people because a lot of people like to use sanity pills. And here's a whole set of free ones that I don't understand why we don't have these. What about all the pieces of equipment that we don't use? Like the infrared light. Why isn't there an objective for detecting presence with an infrared light? Or we already have motion sensor. Why not a sound sensor? Why not detect a level of 4 or above with a parabolic microphone? Why not get a reading on a spirit box at all? There's all these pieces of equipment that we seem to do nothing with. And you have take a photo of the ghost. You have a ghost walk through salt. Why not smudge your ghost, These are all objectives that you could add, and they would add a ton of stuff to the game, because if now we have to use that equipment or that gear that we never used, like the infrared light. And here's an interesting one. They lowered the rate that the thermometer updates its temperatures from 1 second, so 1 second you get 16, 15, 12, that kind of thing, to 5 seconds. But this was changed at the end of the day from 5 to 3. So ultimately it went from 1 to 3. And there's the Cliff Notes version of what happened there. And they increased the variations that the temperature gauge shows you. So this was done for a couple reasons. One, the thermometer was overpowered. All you had to do, I never use it, right? Because it's, you know, childish and easy. No, I just picked 3 things that I like using all the time. And that's just what I use. But it was too easy to pick the thermometer and just walk. You don't even have to walk into rooms. You could just walk by doorways, scanning everything, and you would be like, oh, it's kitchen, and done, easy done, because you immediately got those readings. And so now, by changing the time that it updates, you're gonna have to actually be hanging out places longer in between readings. So it's going to make it much more difficult for you to just, you know, run down the hallway of school going 12, 13, 15, 17. You know, you can't do that now. You have to sit in a certain place. Kind of made myself chuckle. You got to sit in a certain place for longer. Good change, because again, the thermometer was overpowered, in my opinion. I think in a lot of people's opinions. Fixes. School and prison. They fixed several lighting issues. Lighting issues, not exciting. Tanglewood, they fixed some kitchen drawers or cabinet doors where you could still use to glitch up onto the table. Who is playing this and like making the game super unfun? Like that's not even a funny exploit. Like, you know, when the doors break all off the hinges and they're ridiculous. This is like you're taking the one fun part about the game and you're removing that one fun part about the game. I don't understand that one. They fixed a bug where the lights would flicker when the power was off, which you know what, actually probably scared the shit out of some people. Could you imagine if you were actively aware that your power box is off, but somehow your lights still flickered? That would scare the shit out of me in game. And then on the main menu, they fixed a skybox problem. I don't know anything about skyboxes, I can't help you. The changes that they had done that day, I already told you about the update to the thermometer. That was one of the changes that they did later on in the day. The second is the Ouija board will no longer flicker lights when it fails to answer if the power is off. And then they reverted the candle's brightness back to what it was previous because apparently it was way brighter than they had intended. And so they had intended, yeah. And so that was yesterday. I didn't have a chance to play yesterday, so I have no idea how bright it was. But for them to revert it the same day, I'm assuming it was quite luminescent. This is great. And they fixed an issue where the add all button that they just added to the game could sometimes add a whole bunch of items that you didn't even own. So they fixed that. And then in the spirit of Phasmo, how they keep having problems with the same stuff that they're releasing multiple times a day. I get it. It's like one developer. I get it, but more QA. They fixed a bug where the thermometer was still 5 seconds instead of that 3 that they had updated it to, supposedly earlier on in the day. Now look, that may be unfounded, right? I may be being harsh, but I see a lot in these patch notes. It feels like they're doing very little to no testing with how quickly they're rolling stuff out and then rolling it back over multiple days with multiple things. That tells me that I think they're not getting the time in between cycles that maybe they need. Anyway, those are all the fixes, so there hasn't been, as far as I'm aware, let me actually check that one. Okay, I just double checked because I thought about how often they were updating and I was like, is it actually no patch today? But that's correct. So as of today, the 15th of January at 3:30 in the afternoon, there are no additional patches. Hey everybody, it's like the next day or 2 days after. I still have the same sweater because it's still very comfy, still very cold. But they, in the course of me editing this video, released a new patch that really changed things. So I had to make an addendum now to what I was talking about before, so I make sure I include all the things that they've done recently, because otherwise this video would be incomplete. So yesterday there was a new patch that went live early in the morning with some experimental changes that changed the way that temperature works, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but they fixed 2 more bugs. One, again, it's pattern with the ghosts. Apparently hunts would end if the ghost couldn't reach you, as well as they just fixed some angles where the ghost couldn't see you or didn't detect you, whatever. That's not the important stuff. The important stuff. Here is what has changed on the beta since yesterday morning that have significantly changed the way the game plays. The first is that all rooms start with slightly different temperatures now. That's not that big of a deal, but the next one is. If the power is off, if your breaker is now off in beta, what are you doing? I need you to just pick. You gotta just lay down. I can't have you moving around while I'm trying to record a video. The cat, you can't see it, but there is cat right here. If the breaker is off now in a house, you gotta pick a spot, man. You gotta pick a spot. If the breaker is now off in a house, the temperature in every room, no matter if this is asylum or prison or a house, the temperature in every room, I need you to stop rubbing your face on the microphone because I'm certain that it's picking it up because it's a very good microphone. I know you don't understand this because you're a cat. I swear to God, for the last time. The ambient room temperature will be between, as far as I've seen, 3 and 7 degrees Celsius. Now they say it starts at about 5 degrees Celsius, but I've seen it go down to 3. I don't know. It's just basically every room will be the equivalent of a ghost being in that room previously. So now, when you start a map, sorry, nose a little itchy, the cat hair, because the cat. So now, you have to go into a map and turn the breaker on if you're playing on professional, because remember, it starts off. And so you have to turn it on, and the temperature of the map will slowly rise, but the room where the ghost is will still stay very cold. So now you have to, if you're gonna use the thermometer to locate your ghost, you're gonna have to flip the breaker on first before you can do anything. It's gonna take, from my testing, about 1 minute to 2 minutes for the house to come up to temperature, where then you could detect whichever room is still very cold, because that room's temperature is not gonna come up with the rest of the house. They also changed the refresh rate of the temperature gun, again, from 3 now to 2 seconds, I think, to balance out what they just did with the temperature. Now, I've talked a lot about this on the stream that we did yesterday night, because we played on the beta branch all night. I think this is a not well thought out change. And let me tell you why as succinctly as I can. Do I first agree that the thermometer was overpowered? Yes, the thermometer was broken before because you could run down a hallway, grabbing all the temperatures very quickly and spot the room instantly. I believe where the problem actually lies, though, is that Phasmophobia in itself is a game about detective work and trying to piece together what's happening and what kind of ghost it is. And the thermometer kind of breaks that, because the thermometer tells you without a shadow of a doubt that is the room that is being haunted. The ghost has been there. I know it for a fact. It's too exact, I think, and it's too quick. And so I think they're attempting to solve the problem of people getting into a house, immediately going to a room. Oh, that room was 8 degrees Celsius. That's the ghost room. Setting up all the equipment, immediately getting, 4 answers, and then packing it up and leaving, and you've solved the whole mission in under 2.5 minutes. Unfortunately, this change does a number of things negatively, in my opinion. First of which, if you are a solo player, let's just say you're on Asylum. Let's say that you use the temperature gun to try and find the room because Asylum is so big. You turn on the breaker, you're downstairs on the right side of Asylum, the breaker switches off because ghosts do that. Now you have to trek all the way back up, all the way across the entire stage to go turn your breaker back on. So now the game is forcing you to do maintenance. And by maintenance, I mean something you need to continually do over and over, which is flipping the breaker back on until you've located the room. That is a frustrating mechanic. Also, now there's a delay of about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes when you get into a house before you can accurately read temperature. And I'm not gonna wait around being like, well, better wait for the house to come up to temperature before I can use my equipment. That's not a good mechanic. You could have done any number of things to fix or alleviate this problem with the temperature gun that is not this. No one likes having to toy with the breaker. No one likes having to wait around not being able to use stuff. Before people get real mad, here are 3 suggestions that you could do or implement to help alleviate this problem of the thermometer being too overpowered. First one, you had already done it. You changed the temperature refresh rate to 3 seconds. That was fine. It made it so that you had to stand by rooms longer at each room to get an accurate reading. It was already fixed. 2, you could have rooms have a more wide swing of temperature so that you couldn't just get one reading and be like, oh, that's the ghost room. if a ghost or if a room pings 15 and then it kind of swings to 8 and 12 and 11 and 16, you know, you're not really sure, because you're gonna have to sit there and be like, okay, even if a ghost room had a ghost in it, it may be 6 and then 11 and then 5 and then 10. You're gonna have to actually get a realistic reading, because temperature is not always the same everywhere. And so you could just vary it a little bit more, so it's not just like you point your temperature gun at a room and you immediately know like, oh, yep, that's the one. Or third, you could just make it so the ghost wanders a bit more, and so that you wouldn't always just walk into a room and always get the correct temperature reading there. Maybe the ghost is inhabiting, let's just say on Ridgeview again, because that's a map I like. Maybe the ghost is haunting the living room, but when you walk in there, maybe the ghost had walked over to a bedroom because someone was in there. So the living room should not be freezing. So you sit there, you're trying to get a temperature. No, you got nothing. But then the bedroom shows you, you know, some activity, or it looks a little bit cold in there. But then it drops. So you're like, well, I didn't have anything in the living room. I did get a reading in the bedroom, but then maybe the bedroom, you know, the ghost wanders back to its haunt spot. So you're like, okay, the bedroom is now warm, but the living room is cold. And so now you're getting an idea of where the ghost is going, and now you're actually investigating. Now you're following a ghost around, trying to figure out, well, where does it come back to most of the time? And so now you've taken an instrument that before was pinpoint, you're like, that's the room, we're done, to, okay, I have a couple of rooms that I think the ghost could be in. Let me now use my EMF, see where we're getting the strongest readings. Let me set up a camera. Maybe there's a ghost orb affixed in the living room versus this other room. Now you're actually investigating instead of just saying, oh, it reads 5, we're done. There's a lot of things you can do that are not this garbage about having to run back to the breaker. And also, most people, if you're playing on the professional level, and I'm being completely serious, if you're playing on harder difficulties, most teams are not going to turn the breaker on ever, because if you turn the breaker on, you make certain ghosts more powerful. Why are you going to do that? So if I don't need to use the temperature gun because it's not critical, I'm not turning on the breaker so I can wait 2 minutes for the temperature to come up so I can then find the ghost, when I could just say, fuck it, I'll just forget about all that and I'm just gonna go use the EMF, or like I do my ears. I find more ghosts using hearing and just the ghost moving shit around or cracking a door open than I do the temperature gun or EMF. Also, in order to combat that, and I've already thought of this, you should really start every residence with the doors randomly open or closed at different angles. Because right now when you go play Asylum, the strategy is leave every door closed and just wander up and down the hallways until you either hear a noise or you see a door that's cracked open. And so you could immediately alleviate that problem as well by just randomizing if doors are open or closed. That way you can't just pinpoint by sight, and you'd actually have to do investigation. And I think that's where this game is trying to get to, is a good balance between you have all these different tools, they all specialize kind of in something different, but you have to use a combination of them to actually investigate. And I think that's where we're trying to go, but we're not there yet. And doing stuff like this where they're, you know, destroying the way that the thermometer works, instead of also, and I know this argument's gonna make people mad, but he spent all this time trying to fix a problem that didn't exist. In so doing, broke the thermometer even more than it was before, and still, we have all of this fucking equipment that is not useful. Why do you have an infrared light sensor in the game? Why do you have a parabolic? Maybe, instead of trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist, maybe you should work on actually making the other equipment that you already have in the game that serves literally no purpose for 99% of teams. Maybe you should make that stuff useful. Bring that stuff up instead of trying to bring the thermometer down. Give people alternate ways of tracking down and investigating a house. Please. Glow sticks are like a secondary useless item. Salt is at least an objective, right? Infrared lights are completely fucking useless. I think I've seen one person ever in the entire time I've played this game take one in and put it on a wall. The parabolic microphone suffers from a mixture of people don't understand how it works to Also, it's just not very good at its job. You could fix that. Let's see, sound sensors. I can't remember the last time anyone used a sound sensor because there are so many tools that do all of these jobs better than these tools do, and there's not optional objectives for them, so there's no reason to even bring them with you. The head cams are rarely useful because all you see is this moving picture and you can't focus on anything. Plus, switching between cameras on the computer is a nightmare. Like, there are so many things that you could have put your time into changing or fixing, and yet you're stuck on the thermometer. Also, how about you change the ghosts so that we're not always, for the people who are invested in this game like me, who are streaming it all the time, who are publicizing the game for you, maybe make the ghosts harder. Because right now, here's my legitimate strategy. If I get any evidence whatsoever that is not EMF, write-in, or fingerprints first, or a combination of those, I don't care about the ghost. I don't care about hiding. I know I'm just gonna bolt down a hallway, run around in a big loop in the kitchen. Like, there is no threat from any ghost that's not a revenant. Maybe you should focus on that instead. Maybe you should focus on, hey, there's only one real threat in this game. The rest of it is whatever. I know you're trying, and I appreciate the effort because the game is still tremendously fun. I'm meeting a million great people, but there are so many other things that I think require your attention other than the thermometer. Please, focus your efforts elsewhere. The moment that I get done recording and I go back to editing, there's another fucking update on the beta branch. I'm just gonna go through it real quick because otherwise this video's never gonna go out. Fixes. 1. Fixed a bug where the outside temperature was changing due to with the power? Come on. Next. Fixed a bug where you could use sanity pills infinitely when the truck was closed. Very strange. Professional difficulty, fixed a bug where the ghost room would sometimes start at maximum temperature. Very strange, but whatever. Changes. Jesus Christ. Remove the temperature objective because of the temperature changes that they had done. This is what I'm talking about. This developer does not see 2 minutes into the future. He's just making change. Like, you could have done this when you actually rolled this out if you had thought, it's fine. Each room will now lower and raise temperature at different speeds. Lowered the speed at which the temperature raises when the breaker is on. Why are you still doing this? Why are you making it even harder? Lowered the speed that the ghost drops the temperature in its own room, and they changed it so that the freezing temperature ghosts drop temperature the same speed as other ghosts. I guess before it may have been that the temperature was dropping faster because of a freezing temperature ghost, whatever. That's all 5 changes. And they've added a delay for closing the truck door once it's been opened to prevent trolling. Listen to me, developer, because you're boiling my blood now. There are a million things that you could be working on fixing. That was not the fucking truck door. How about VR players holding doors shut and no one can open them, resulting in them getting players killed on purpose? I think that's way worse than the truck door. But again, you're fixing stuff, it's fine. But I'm just saying, there are other fish that you could be frying that are worth a lot more than a truck door delay. It's fine, I'm done. That's the changes. I'm gonna make this video or it's never gonna go out.